Hey y'all, it's your girl Dr. J, and I would like to welcome you back to or welcome you to my YouTube channel where you can let it flow with Dr. J. The title of this message is Stop Thinking Small When God is Thinking Big. I think we've all been in a place where we have been in the process of believing God for something and found ourselves waiting for an extended period. And in this time, thoughts of worry and doubt may start to develop in our minds because, quite frankly, we get impatient and tired of the wait. We get to the point where we doubt that anything will happen, or we doubt that things will change, or we doubt that God is still going to do what he promised he would do. We get caught up in our feelings and emotions, and we start to look at our circumstances and the voices of doubt, defeat, worry, and frustration start to get louder and louder with each passing day. And sometimes those thoughts get so loud that we become stressed, overwhelmed, frustrated, angry, and even disappointed because we thought that things would have changed for us by now, or that the thing we were praying for would have been given to us by now. But sometimes the very thing that we are praying for doesn't measure up to what God has planned or in store for our lives. Sometimes we sell ourselves short because we think that we're not deserving of big things, that we're only deserving of small blessings. And sometimes we look at our finances, our capacity, and our abilities, and we think that we can't or we shouldn't ask for greater because we're not capable of handling anything more than we've asked for. Sometimes we do not have the imagination, the faith, or the belief that we can seek greater or we can ask God to grant us a God sized blessing because we focus on what we can handle or what we can achieve in our own strength. This type of thinking leads us to have small faith and small hope. And the thing about small faith and small hope is that it comes out in our prayers and in our conversations. And one way I can help you truly understand what I mean is through song. So the late great Betty Wright has a song titled After the Pain. And yes, I am old enough to know this song. I'm an 80s kid, but I was raised listening to songs from my parents and grandparents' childhood and their adulthood. And this is one of those songs that came out in the 80s that I really liked, but wasn't old enough to sing it, let alone really understand what the words meant. But as I got older, I started to listen to the song, to really listen to what she was saying. And there are certain parts of the song that I would not sing back then and I will not sing today. So, midway through the song, Betty says, Time has taught me that having a piece of man is better than having no man at all. So, I'm just going to take what I got and work with it. This part of the song is often how we pray. And what I mean by this is we get comfortable with settling for less than we deserve. We get comfortable with accepting mediocre, low quality, and basic things. We get comfortable with or become okay with taking what we have and working with it. Or we become okay with listening to the thoughts that tell us that we are not worthy of more. And again, the small faith and small hope eventually comes out in our prayers and our conversations. In our prayers, we may find ourselves saying, God, if you can just bless me with a car, if you can just bless me with a spouse, if you can just bless me with a house, or if you could just bless me with a little something, I'll be satisfied. Even when we talk to family, friends, and whoever else we may decide to share things with, sometimes our speech comes from a lack or a deficit mindset. We may say things like, I'm just waiting for this little job to come through, or I'm just waiting for a few people to buy something from my business, or I'm just trying to make it with the little that I have, or we even downplay things that are really major because everything we hope for or prayed for hasn't manifested. So we feel like we can't or we shouldn't celebrate the small wins that we make in our lives. I've even found myself asking God to just bless me with a job. Or when I was searching for my first home, I got so frustrated with the process that I asked God to just bless me with one of the houses I had already viewed. In both cases, I started with great faith and great hope that God was going to do something amazing. But as the wait became longer and options were few and far in between, my faith and my hope started to run low. And I found myself in a space of being willing to accept less than what I deserved and what I desired. You see, we get to the point in our lives where two things happen. One, we start off with big faith, big hopes, and big dreams, and all of the excitement in the world about what's to come. But when doors close, when people walk away, when money gets funny, or things don't work out the way that we thought or hoped they would in a time frame that we thought it would happen, we get discouraged. And sometimes we decide to settle. We may still pursue the thing we wanted, but we do not have the same level of enthusiasm as we did in the beginning, nor do we have the same level of faith and belief that it's really going to work out for us. Sometimes we get so low and so desperate that we do just what Betty said in her song. We take what we can get and we work with it. We would rather settle for less or for a counterfeit or a cheaper version of our dreams just to say we're doing something, just to feel like I've accomplished something or I'm doing a little something, something. The other thing that happens with some of our hopes, dreams, and prayers is we abort the mission. We shift our focus from the thing we've been praying for or the dreams and the desires that God has placed in our hearts to forgetting those things and going in a completely different direction that takes us out of alignment with the plan that God has for our lives. When it gets hard, and the pain and frustration gets too difficult to bear, we throw in the towel and try to pursue other things, or we put our dreams on the shelf and leave it to collect dust. You see, when we get to the abort mission phase of our journey, we've basically given up on ourselves, on God, and our dreams, and we start thinking small. We dim our lights and allow ourselves to drift into a place of just taking what we can get or settling for the fake, watered down version of what we actually desire. And this is a dangerous place to be in because everything worth having in life requires work, faith, sacrifice, persistence, and the ability to keep pressing forward despite what we see or what we don't see, and despite how long it takes. It requires us to still believe that whatever God promised us, it will come to pass. It requires us to believe that we are deserving of God's best. It requires us to stop thinking small when God is thinking big. It requires us to remember what we initially prayed for and to find that passion, hope, faith, and dedication, that enthusiasm that we had in the beginning, so we can keep moving in the direction that we have been called to go in. It requires us to let go of the defeated and doubting mindset and to shift our focus back to the one who has all power in his hands. It requires us to stop trying to figure out how we're going to work it out or how we're going to make things happen and to focus on the promise keeper. It requires us to stop looking at what we can do in our own strength and focus on the one who sees all, hears all, and knows all. It requires us to be mindful of our prayers, our thoughts, and our words, especially in times of trouble and in times of waiting, particularly the long waits. Because one of the easiest things to do is to bring our prayers, thoughts, and our desires down to a level where we believe is achievable for us in our own strength, a level where we will be satisfied with receiving small things or just enough to get us by, a level where we feel like, okay, God, I'm sure you can do this. I know I asked for this big thing, but it ain't happened yet. So let me just bring it down a bit and let's ask you for this little bit, this little thing. And we start to limit him. But what we must realize is we serve a gracious God, a loving God, a faithful God, and a God whose word shall not return to him void. A God that can bring to pass whatever dream or vision he placed in our hearts. We must realize that our level of thinking, our level of strength, and our abilities do not compare to the magnitude of what God can do. This is why we can't afford to think, pray, or talk small. I mean, I'm guilty of this as well because when I asked God to just give me a job, my speech and my thoughts mirrored what I was praying for. I remember saying, God, if you would just bless me with a job, or if you would just bless me with anything, that'll be good enough for me. However, God reminded me of what I initially asked Him for. He took me back to what I had written out and placed in my prayer journal and what I placed in my Bible that detail everything I desired in my next role. He brought this back to me because I was in a space of willingness to accept anything just to say I had a job. Even in my house hunt, when the lender kept telling me that I couldn't afford this and that, and I wouldn't be approved for a lot of the houses that I was looking at that I really liked, I allowed what they said to cause me to doubt my God. I doubted that I would be able to get the house that I desired or that I would even be able to have something nice. But God did the same thing of reminding me of what I asked for. In fact, that's what he said to me. He asked me, "What did you ask me for?" In that moment, I had to go back to my prayer journal and look at the fact that I asked for new construction. And I was so specific. I said I wanted tray ceilings, an island in my kitchen, a niche in my showers, gray carpet. I wanted a house near stores and restaurants. I mean, there's quite a few things that I asked for. But I was thinking big in the beginning, but as the process continued and the no's kept coming, I found myself getting ready to put in an offer on a house that was over 10 years old and in a neighborhood that wasn't close to anything, including my job. I was settling. I felt it in my spirit when I walked out of that house. I was settling because I was tired. I was frustrated. It had been a long house hunt. But before I had the chance to put in an offer, God had to remind me of what I asked for, but also who He is and who He has always been. I had to shift my mindset from a space of defeat, doubt, worry, and frustration to a place of Mark 11:24, which states, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours." I had to remember Psalms 37:4, which tells me to delight myself in the Lord and He will give me the desires of my heart. I had to shift back to Philippians 4:6, where it tells me not to be anxious for anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. I had to shift my mindset from thinking small, praying small, believing small, speaking small, and settling for less. God had to remind me that in my prayers, I should not be asking for just a little, just enough, or just a piece of something. He had to remind me that I serve a big God who has the power to do all things, not some things, a few things, or only little things. I serve a God who can do amazing and wonderful things because He said that His thoughts are not my thoughts, neither are my ways His ways. He said, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are His ways higher than my ways, and His thoughts higher than my thoughts. This gives me the ability to think and dream big, bold, live, and in color. It gives me hope that no matter what I face, no matter what man may say, no matter how many times I fail, I stumble, or I fall, no matter how many times people may walk out of my life and leave me without any type of support, no matter who doesn't support or believe in my business or in me, no matter who doesn't even patronize my business, no matter what my finances say, and no matter how long it takes, I can still think and believe big. I can believe God for greater. I can believe Him for things that in my own strength are not possible. I can believe Him for His best without settling for less. I can choose if I'm going to have great faith or small faith, if I'm going to limit God or if I'm going to take the limits off of God and trust Him to do what I cannot do on my own or with my limited resources. And you can do the same. So if you are someone who has given up on your dreams, who has stopped believing that it will happen for you, if you are someone who has begun to think small about your life, your hopes, and your dreams, or if you are someone who has decided to abort the mission, I stopped by to tell you to begin to dream again. Begin to think on a grander scale. Begin to have those grandiose ideas. Begin to believe that you will be booked and busy all year long. Believe that you're going to be in a position to hire a whole team. Believe that you're going to get the job that your resume doesn't even say that you're qualified for. Believe that you are debt free. Believe that you will meet the right person so you don't have to settle for a piece of man or a piece of a woman just to say that you have one. Believe that God is up to something good and what he presents will exceed anything you could ever ask, pray, imagine, or hope for. Because one thing about God, even when I pray for something big, even when we pray for something big, he's always going to do more. He's going to exceed that. He's always going to show us why he is big God and not little God. Ain't no Lil in front of his name. So I challenge you to stop thinking small and to start thinking big. I challenge you to dare to dream and to believe God for his best. I challenge you to have faith, even if you get to the point where all you have is mustard seed faith. I still challenge you to take that faith and believe that God is going to move in your life in a mighty way. All right, y'all. I hope this message blesses you and it meets you at your point of need. I've dropped a few scriptures in the description. And as always, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Peace and love. It's your girl, Dr. J.